What if the people who were supposed to protect you were the ones who sold you? For Anna, this was reality. Deemed barren and worthless by her own parents, she was cast out, sold like property for the price of a treaty. She was a ghost in her own pack, a servant with no future. But destiny laughs at the plans of cruel men. That worthless daughter is about to be brought before the one man in the world who holds the power of life and death, the Alpha King. And when he sees her, he won't see a flaw, he will see a queen. The world knew Anna of the Blood Moon Pack by a single, brutal word: barren. In the rigid, succession-obsessed hierarchy of the werewolves, the inability to produce an heir was not just a medical condition, it was a curse. It was a black mark that rendered a she-wolf worthless, lower than the lowest omega. And Anna, at 20 years old, wore that mark like a shroud. It had been declared 4 years prior by the pack's healer, old Myra, after Anna's first shift had come and gone without the subsequent signs of a wolf ready to mate. The moon goddess has turned her face from this one, Myra had pronounced, her voice rattling with false piety. The womb is cold. There will be no issue. From that day, Anna's life, which had already been a shadow, evaporated into nothing. Her father, Alpha Alistair, a man whose ambition was as vast as his cruelty, looked at her with open disgust. Her mother, Luna Serafina, a woman of icy beauty and a colder heart, simply stopped seeing her at all. But the deepest venom came from her sister, Lyra. Lyra was everything Anna was not. She was golden-haired, vibrant, and possessed a strong, boisterous wolf. She was the pride of the Blood Moon Pack, and she never missed an opportunity to remind Anna of her uselessness. "Do try to stay out of sight, Anna," Lyra would titter, passing her in the pack-house hall. "Your condition, it's a blight on our family's reputation. We're hosting the Silver Crescent delegation, and frankly, you're an embarrassment." Anna, her silver-grey hair tied back in a messy knot and her face smudged with hearth ash, would only nod and dip her head. "Yes, Lyra. Good girl. Now fetch my lavender cloak, the one with the fur trim, and be quick about it, you useless thing." Anna spent her days in the kitchens, her hands raw from lye soap and scalding water. She was the pack's servant, relegated to mending torn tunics, scrubbing floors, and emptying chamber pots. Her wolf, a timid, whisper-thin presence in the back of her mind, had not fully surfaced since her first disastrous shift. It was as broken as she was. The only time she felt a spark of life was when she managed to sneak into the deep woods surrounding their territory. She had a quiet skill with herbs, a knowledge passed down from a grandmother she barely remembered. She'd gather healing poultices and calming teas, things the pack healer Myra was always too busy to source herself. It was in the silence of the forest, with her hands in the rich earth, that Anna could breathe. But those moments were few. Her life was a cage, the final lock on that cage, turned on the eve of the full moon conclave. Alpha Alistair summoned her to his study. This was so unusual, Anna's stomach filled with icy dread. She stood on the expensive woven rug, her thin slippers soaked from the rain, dripping onto the floor. Alistair didn't look up from his papers. "You are aware," he began, his voice a low rumble of authority, "that the Shadowfang Pack has requested assistance for the upcoming royal visitation." Anna's head snapped up. The royal visitation? That could only mean one person, Alpha King Kalen, the ruler of the Ashenclaw Dominion, the supreme authority over all packs in the Western Territories. He was a figure of myth, a warrior king said to be ruthless, powerful, and for the last decade, mateless. I had heard rumors, Alpha," she whispered. "The Shadowfang Alpha Silas requires supplementary staff. Kitchen hands, servants, labourers. His pack house is bursting, preparing for the king and his court." He finally looked at her, his eyes cold. "He has offered a generous trade stipend for any able-bodied workers we can lend." Anna's heart hammered. "Lend? It's a permanent arrangement." He steepled his fingers. "Lyra is to be presented to the king at the choosing ball. It is our pack's greatest honour. Seraphina and I will be attending her. We cannot, at this juncture, be associated with a flaw." The meaning struck her like a physical blow. What are you saying?" "The Shadowfang pack has agreed to take you," Alistair said flatly, "in exchange for a full waiver of the next 2 years' resource tributes we owed them. Your sale has proven surprisingly profitable, Anna. You should be proud. It's the first useful thing you've ever done." Sale. The word hung in the air, thick and poisonous. He hadn't lent her. He had sold her. He had sold his own daughter, his own blood, to another pack to scrub their flaws, all so his other, better daughter could be presented to the king without the embarrassment of a barren sister. "Father, please," she begged, the word tasting like ash in her mouth. "Don't do this. I'll stay in the kitchens. No one will see me. I swear it." "The deal is done," Seraphina said, gliding into the room. She hadn't been invisible after all. She had been listening. She adjusted her perfect silk gown, not a single hair out of place. "The Shadowfang guards are at the northern border. You will be escorted tonight. Do not make a scene, Anna. It's so common." Lyra appeared in the doorway, a smirk playing on her lips. "Oh, do try to keep up, sister. I hear the Shadowfang pack house is enormous. So many flaws to scrub. Don't let them find out you're barren, though. They might decide you're not even good enough for that." Tears streamed down Anna's face, hot and silent. This was it. This was the end. Her own family, her own blood was casting her out. She was being traded like cattle, and they were celebrating it. A guard entered, his face impassive. "The transport is ready, Alpha." "Take her," Alistair said, waving a hand dismissively, already turning back to his maps. Anna didn't scream. She didn't fight. A cold, terrifying numbness settled over her. As the guard gripped her arm and pulled her from the study, her eyes met Lyra's. "Have a good life, Anna," Lyra whispered, her voice dripping with triumphant venom. "Or whatever approximation of one you can manage." As she was marched out of the pack house she grew up in, into the cold, driving rain, Anna made a vow. She didn't know how, and she didn't know when, but she would survive this. And one day, the universe would deliver the justice her family so richly deserved. She had no idea that her sale was the first step toward a destiny she could never have imagined. The journey to the Shadowfang territory was a 3-day ordeal of humiliation. Anna was not permitted to ride with the guards. She was forced to walk behind the supply wagon, chained to its axle by a loose-fitting iron cuff on her ankle. The generous trade her father had mentioned was apparently not generous enough to include humane transport. She was cold, wet, and starving. The guards, loyal to Alistair, treated her with the same contempt she'd received at home. They tossed her scraps of stale bread and made lewd jokes about the barren runt being put to good use by the Shadowfang warriors. Anna remained silent, her mind a fortress. She focused on the feel of the earth under her worn-out boots, on the scent of pine and damp soil. Her wolf, which had been a dying ember, felt a strange, faint stir in the back of her mind. It was as if the further she got from the Blood Moon pack, the clearer her own head became. When they finally arrived at the Shadowfang stronghold, it was nothing like her home. The Blood Moon packhouse was a large, sprawling manor. This was a fortress. It was carved from the mountainside itself, with high stone walls, watchtowers, and a sense of ancient, formidable power. She was processed like livestock. A surly, scarred Omega named Jeb unchained her, shoved a bar of lye soap and a rough tunic into her hands, and pointed to the servants' baths. "Get yourself clean, runt," he growled. "You smell like the border. You're assigned to the main kitchens. The Alpha King's delegation arrives in 2 days. You mess up, you lose a hand. You run, you lose your head. Got it?" "Yes," Anna whispered, her voice hoarse. The next 48 hours were a blur of frenetic, back-breaking labor. The Shadowfang kitchens were 10 times the size of Blood Moon's, a cavern of steam, shouting, and the constant clang of metal. Anna was the lowest of the low. Her job was to haul water from the well, scrub the massive iron cauldrons, and stoke the fires. She learned quickly to make herself invisible. She kept her head down, did her work twice as fast as anyone else, and spoke to no one. The other servants, sensing she was an outcast, left her alone. On the afternoon before the king's arrival, Anna was sent on an impossible errand. The head cook, a terrifying she-wolf named Marda, realized she was out of wild mountain mint, a crucial ingredient for the welcoming feast's lamb dish. "The delivery was shorted," Marda roared, slamming a ladle onto the counter. "I need it now. You!" She pointed a flour-covered finger at Anna. "Runt, you look like you've slept in the dirt. Go find some." "Me, Mom," Anna said, her eyes wide. "But the woods. It grows by the east stream, about a mile up. You have 1 hour. If you're not back, I'll have Jeb drag you back by your hair. Go." Freedom, even for an hour, was a potent lure. Anna grabbed a gathering basket and fled the oppressive heat of the kitchen. The forest here was different, older, more powerful. She found the stream easily and began following it uphill. The scent of pine and damp rock cleared her head. She found the patch of mountain mint Marda demanded and quickly filled her basket. But as she stood to leave, a different scent caught her nose. It was subtle, almost hidden beneath the mint. It was silver root, a rare herb used to treat phantom limb pain in warriors who'd lost limbs in battle. Old Myra had always complained it was impossible to find. Drawn by an instinct she didn't understand, Anna left the path, pushing through a curtain of thick ferns, and she found it. A whole cluster of the pale, shimmering roots nestled in the hollow of a lightning-struck oak. She was so focused on gently digging out the roots, careful not to damage the plant, that she didn't hear the footsteps until it was too late. A deep, commanding voice broke the silence. "That's a rare find. Most don't know where to look." Anna gasped, spinning around. Her basket toppled, scattering mint and silver root across the forest floor. He was magnificent and terrifying. He was the largest man she had ever seen, dressed not in royal silks, but in practical, dark leather guardsman's armor. He had no sigil, but the power rolling off him in waves was unmistakable. He was a warrior, and a high-ranking one. His hair was the color of a raven's wing, pulled back from a face that was all hard angles and severe beauty. But it was his eyes that held her captive. They were the color of molten gold, and they were fixed on her with an intensity that made her skin burn. I'm sorry," she stammered, dropping into a submissive crouch, her eyes averted. I was sent by the cook for mint. I didn't mean to trespass, sir." He didn't move. The silence stretched. "You're not Shadowfang," he stated. It wasn't a question. "No, sir. I was from Blood Moon. I'm a new servant. A servant who knows her herbs. You knew what the silver root was for." She risked a glance up. He was closer now. The air around him thrummed, and an impossible scent flooded her senses. Something like burning embers, old forests, and thunderstorms. It was intoxicating. Her weak, dormant wolf suddenly shot to the front of her mind, alert and thrumming with an energy she had never felt before. "Mate," a voice whispered in her head. Impossible. It was a delusion brought on by fear and starvation. Mates were for whole people, for valuable she-wolves, not for barren, broken things. He tilted his head. "What is your name?" "Anna, sir." "Look at me, Anna." She forced herself to meet his gaze. The gold in his eyes swirled, and for a second she felt as if he could see every scar on her soul. He took a step closer. He reached out, not to strike her, but to gently brush a stray piece of leaf from her hair. His fingers were calloused, but his touch was electric. A horn blared in the distance, the signal for the king's arrival. The man's expression hardened, his brief moment of curiosity replaced by the mask of a soldier. "The king's vanguard is here. You should not be in the woods alone. It's dangerous." "Yes, sir." "Thank you, sir." Anna scrambled to gather her herbs, her hands shaking. "You dropped this," he said, holding out a single, perfect stalk of silver root. As she took it from him, their fingers brushed. The shock was so intense, she gasped and stumbled back. He watched her for a long moment, his face unreadable. "Go, before you're missed." Anna didn't need to be told twice. She turned and ran, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs, the scent of embers and thunderstorms clinging to her senses. She didn't look back. If she had, she would have seen the man, the guard, staring after her. His golden eyes narrowed in profound, unnerving contemplation. He was Kalen, the Alpha King, and he had just found the one thing in the world he wasn't looking for. Anna made it back to the kitchens with only seconds to spare, earning a clout on the head from Marder for her tardiness, but a grunt of approval for the silver root. The next few hours were chaos. The Alpha King and his entire royal court had arrived. The fortress was alive with energy, the halls echoing with the footsteps of warriors and the high-pitched laughter of nobles. Anna was in the scullery, her arms deep in a vat of greasy water, when the summons came. Jeb, the scarred Omega, yanked her out by the arm. "You're up, runt. Marder's short-staffed for the banquet. You'll be serving." Anna's blood ran cold. "What? No, please. I'm not presentable." "You think I care?" Jeb sneered. He shoved a servant's apron at her. "You'll be on the lowest table, with the junior guards. Just fill their goblets, keep your head down, and don't speak. And for the goddess's sake, try not to stain the tapestries with your filth." She was rushed into a plain, dark blue servant's dress. Her hair scraped back so tightly it made her eyes water. The grand hall was a spectacle of wealth and power she couldn't have imagined. Banners from a dozen packs hung from the rafters. The tables were laden with roasted meats, exotic fruits, and glistening pastries. And at the head of the hall, on a raised dais, sat the Alphas. She saw her family. Alpha Alistair, looking proud and powerful. Luna Seraphina, a vision in emerald silk, and Lyra. Lyra was seated at the Alpha's table, radiant in a gown of gold, her laughter bright as she spoke to a handsome Alpha beside her. Then Anna's eyes were drawn to the center of the dais, to the high seat. Her heart stopped. It was him. The man from the woods. He was not a guard. He was the king. Alpha King Kalen was even more formidable in his full regalia. He wore black and silver, a simple circlet of burnished steel on his dark hair. He was not laughing. He sat with a terrifying stillness, his golden eyes scanning the crowd, his expression bored and bordering on disdainful. Anna nearly dropped the pitcher of wine in her hand. He was the king, and she She had been filthy, she had stammered, she had run from him. Mortification burned her cheeks. Her station was at the very back of the hall, near the kitchens, serving the lowest-ranking guards. It was a blessing. She was hidden. She poured wine with trembling hands, her eyes fixed on the floor. "He's magnificent, isn't he?" one servant girl whispered to another. "They say he hasn't chosen a mate because his wolf is too powerful, that it's waiting for the true Luna." "I heard he's searching for the silver heart," the other replied, "a woman from the old prophecy, destined to unite the packs." The feast dragged on. Anna's arms ached, but she worked mechanically. Refill, step back, refill, step back. Then came the presentation of the chosen. This was it, the moment her family had sold her for. Alpha Silas of the Shadow Fang began. "Alpha King Kaelin, we, your loyal vassals, offer our most esteemed daughters for your consideration. May the moon goddess guide your choice." One by one, the high-born females were presented. Clarissa of the Silver Crescent, Amara of the Stone Fist, and finally, Lyra of the Blood Moon. Lyra glided forward, her golden dress shimmering. She curtsied deeply, her smile a perfect, practiced work of art. "My king," she said, her voice dripping with honey, "it is my honor to welcome you." Kaelin looked at her, his face impassive. He gave a curt nod. Lyra's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. She had clearly expected a more enthusiastic response. Alpha Alistair rose. "My king, my daughter Lyra, is not only a beauty, but she carries the strongest wolf in our lineage. She would make a powerful, fertile match for a king." He emphasized the word fertile, and Anna flinched, even though no one was looking at her. It was a direct, final insult. It was then that disaster struck. A clumsy junior guard, drunk on the free-flowing wine, stumbled backward as Anna was refilling his goblet. He slammed into her, hard. Anna lost her balance. The heavy ceramic pitcher flew from her hands. She crashed to the stone floor, and the entire pitcher of dark, blood-red wine arced through the air, drenching the pristine, white fur cloak of a noblewoman at the next table. The hall went utterly silent. The woman, Lady Clarissa, the one who had been presented just before Lyra, let out a piercing shriek. "My cloak! You filthy, clumsy rat!" Anna scrambled to her feet, her face burning with a shame so deep it was suffocating. I am so sorry, my lady. It was an accident. An accident." Lady Clarissa's father, Alpha Gideon, rose, his face purple with rage. "You've ruined a cloak worth more than your entire miserable life. Jeb, fetch the hospitality whip. This thing needs to be taught a lesson." "No, please," Anna begged, backing away as Jeb, a cruel smile on his face, advanced toward her, uncoiling a thin leather whip. Lyra laughed, a clear, tinkling sound. "Oh, Anna," she called out, loud enough for the whole hall to hear. "Still finding ways to embarrass us, I see. Some things never change." Alistair and Seraphina watched, their faces like stone. They would not intervene. This was her fate. Jeb raised the whip. Anna squeezed her eyes shut, bracing for the sting. "Enough!" The word was not shouted. It was a low, guttural growl that vibrated through the very stones of the hall. Every wolf in the room, Alpha, Beta, and Omega, froze, their instincts screaming at them to submit. Alpha King Kaelin was on his feet. His chair had been thrown backward. His golden eyes were not human. They were the blazing, molten orbs of his wolf. And they were fixed on Anna. He moved. He didn't walk. He flowed through the crowd, which parted before him like water. In 2 long strides, he was between Anna and Jeb. He didn't even look at the Omega. He simply held out his hand. Jeb, shaking, dropped the whip as if it were on fire. Calen turned. He looked at the furious Alpha Gideon, at the shrieking Lady Clarissa, at the smirking Lyra, and at the horrified Alistair. Then he looked down at Anna. She was trembling, covered in spilled wine, her face pale with terror. He reached out, the same calloused hand from the forest, and gently, almost reverently, tucked a loose strand of silver-grey hair behind her ear. The entire hall held its breath. "I have travelled," Calen's voice rang out, "to a dozen packs. I have sat through mind-numbing feasts. I have been presented with your finest daughters, all of them preening and posturing, offering me alliances and power." He never took his eyes off Anna. "They all smell of ambition, of greed, of desperation." He bent, taking Anna's trembling hand, and pulled her to her feet. He drew her to his side, his arm possessively circling her waist, shielding her from the stunned crowd. His golden eyes scanned the room, settling on Alpha Alistair. "You," he said, his voice dropping to a dangerous chill, "offer me a fertile daughter, yet you hide your true treasure in the kitchens. You sell your own blood for a resource treaty." He turned his gaze back to Anna, and his expression softened, a look of profound recognition and possession. The entire room felt the shift in the air, the unmistakable claim. "I have spent a decade searching," he announced to the hall, "for a scent, a soul that did not bow or break, one that was pure." He looked at Anna, and for the first time she did not look away. The terror was fading, replaced by a white-hot, impossible connection. The thrumming in her chest was now a roar. "Mate," Calen's lips curved in a slow, dangerous smile. He addressed the stunned, silent alphas. "The presentations are over. The search is finished. I have made my choice." He raised Anna's hand to his lips, his golden eyes blazing a challenge at the entire world. "I choose her." The silence in the grand hall was absolute, a heavy, suffocating blanket. It was broken only by the sound of a golden goblet slipping from Lyra's numb fingers and clattering to the floor. Alpha Alistair's face had gone from red to a sickly, mottled white. Seraphina looked as if she'd been struck. My king," Alistair stammered, his voice cracking. There must be a mistake. You don't understand. This is Anna. She is unwell. She is barren." Calen's arm tightened around Anna's waist, pulling her flush against his side. The contact was like lightning, a jolt of pure energy that made her weak knees strong. "She is my mate," Calen stated, his voice leaving no room for argument. "The moon goddess does not make mistakes, Alistair." "But you have." He ignored the gasps, the whispers, the horrified looks. With his free hand, he unclasped the heavy, silver wolf pelt cloak from his own shoulders and draped it around Anna, covering her thin, wine-stained servant's dress. It was warm and heavy, saturated with his scent of embers and thunderstorms. It was a clear, undeniable mark of possession. "The feast is over," Calen announced. He turned, not waiting for a response, and swept Anna from the hall. The entire royal guard, cloaked in the grey and black of the ashen claw, fell in step behind them, forming an impenetrable wall. They left a scene of utter chaos. Lyra was sobbing, a hysterical, ugly sound. Alistair was bellowing for his guards. Seraphina had fainted. It was the complete and total implosion of the Blood Moon Pack's ambitions. Anna was half-carried, her feet barely touching the ground. Calen didn't stop until they were in the royal suite, a massive set of chambers that took up an entire wing of the fortress. He didn't release her until the heavy oak doors were slammed shut and bolted by his personal beta, a stern-faced warrior named Marcus. "My king," Marcus began, his eyes wary as he looked at the dishevelled Anna. "This is irregular. The political ramifications. Leave us, Marcus, Cailan commanded. But Cailan, leave us! Marcus bowed stiffly, his disapproval a palpable thing, and exited the room. They were alone. The room was silent, save for the crackling of a massive fireplace. Anna stood in the center of the plush rug, drowning in the king's cloak. Now that the shock was fading, the terror was returning. "My king," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You've made a terrible mistake. My father, he was telling the truth." Cailan turned to her. His wolf was gone, replaced by the intense, calculating man. "The truth? I am what they say." The words felt like acid on her tongue. "I am barren. I cannot shift properly. My wolf is broken. I cannot be your Luna. I cannot give you an heir." She finally broke, the years of humiliation and pain crashing down on her. Tears streamed down her face. "They sold me for a reason. I am worthless." Cailan crossed the room in 2 strides. He didn't coddle her. He gripped her by the shoulders, his gaze forcing her to meet his. "You will never use that word again," he commanded, his voice a low, fierce rumble. "Do you understand me?" "But it's true," she sobbed. "No." He shook her gently. "It is a lie. You don't know." "I know," he interrupted, "that the moment I saw you in the woods, my wolf, which has been silent for 10 years, began howling. I know that when I touched you, the mark of the mate bond settled over my heart, and I know that the infertility you speak of is an impossibility. But the healer was a liar or a fool." He released her, his mind clearly working. "A true mate bond, blessed by the goddess, is the source of all life. It cannot be barren. It is a divine paradox." He paced the room, his energy filling the space. This is a wound, a sickness, not a permanent state." He stopped, his golden eyes narrowing. "Tell me. Everything." And so she did. She told him about Myra's decree, about her weak, dormant wolf, about the years of being told she was cold and empty, about the cruelty of Lyra and the ice of her mother. As she spoke, Cailan's expression grew darker, his stillness more dangerous. When she finished, he was silent for a full minute. Then he went to the door and spoke to the guard outside. "Fetch healer Morwen. Tell her it is a matter of urgency." 20 minutes later, an ancient she-wolf arrived. Morwen was nothing like Myra. She was tiny and wrinkled, her grey hair in a single long braid, her eyes the colour of a winter sky, pale, clear, and seeing everything. She was the royal healer, and her knowledge of lupine physiology was legendary. "My king," she said, her voice like dry leaves. "You called." "Morwen, my mate," Cailan said, gesturing to Anna. Morwen's eyes widened for just a second. She shuffled over to Anna, who stood nervously by the fire. The old healer sniffed the air around her, then, without asking, grabbed Anna's hand, turning it over, pressing her thumb into the girl's palm. She peered into Anna's eyes, then her ears. Morwen grunted. "She's malnourished and exhausted, but the bloodline is interesting." "She has been told she is barren," Cailan said, his voice tight. Morwen snorted. "Is she? We'll see. Sit, child." The old healer was gentle but firm. She took a blood sample. She had Anna breathe into a silver cup. She burned a bundle of herbs and had Anna inhale the smoke, watching the color as it exhaled. Finally, she took a small, clear crystal and pressed it to Anna's abdomen. The crystal, clear as water, began to fog. But it wasn't a clear fog. It was murky. Black, ugly tendrils of smoke swirled inside the stone. Morwen's face, which had been placid, contorted in rage. "Goddess preserve us!" she hissed, dropping the crystal as if it were hot. "What is it?" Cailan demanded, moving to Anna's side. "Barren," Morwen spat. "This child isn't barren, you fools. She's been poisoned." Anna and Kaelin both froze. "Poisoned?" Anna whispered. "Aye." Morwen's eyes were sharp, slowly, meticulously, for years. It's wolfsbane, but a rare derivative, not enough to kill, but enough to suppress, to dampen the wolf, to chill the body, to mimic the signs of infertility. This was not an accident. This was a conspiracy. Kaelin's aura exploded. The windows of the chamber rattled in their frames. The fire roared, spitting embers onto the hearth. His eyes were pure, blazing gold. "Who?" he growled. Morwen looked at Anna, her expression softening for the first time. "The question, my dear, is who in your pack would hate you, or perhaps fear you, enough to do this? To systematically destroy your wolf and your future, one drop at a time." Anna's mind flashed through the years of calming teas her mother insisted she drink. The tonics healer Myra forced on her after her first shift, claiming they were for her weakness. The way Lyra would always offer her a cup, smiling her sweet, false smile. It wasn't that she was worthless. It was that someone was terrified of what she was worth. My mother," Anna whispered, the full, horrific truth crashing down on her. "And Myra. And Lyra." Kaelin said nothing. He simply walked to his desk, unrolled a piece of parchment, and picked up a quill. He wrote for a moment, then sealed the scroll with his royal signet. "Marcus," he called. The beta entered immediately, his face a mask. "Take this to Alpha Alistair," Kaelin said, his voice lethally calm. "It is a summons. He, his Luna, his daughter Lyra, and the healer Myra will present themselves to me at sunrise for questioning, regarding a charge of high treason." "Treason, my king?" Marcus asked, stunned. Kaelin looked at Anna, at the woman they had tried to destroy, who was now draped in his cloak and standing under his protection. "Yes," the king replied, his voice like the drawing of a steel blade. "They attempted to murder a queen." The hours before dawn were the longest of Anna's life. Morwen had stayed, forcing a potent, earthy-smelling antidote down Anna's throat. "This will be unpleasant," the old healer warned. "The poison has deep roots. When the body purges it, the wolf will wake, and she will be angry." Kaelin had not left her side. He sat in a chair before the fire, watching her with that same unnerving intensity, as if she were a puzzle he was slowly and angrily solving. "Why?" Anna asked, her voice small. She was huddled in a nest of furs Morwen had made for her on a chaise lounge. "Why would they do this? Why not just get rid of me?" "Because," Kaelin said, his voice a low rumble, "killing an alpha's daughter, even one out of favor, invites questions. It risks a blood feud. But discrediting her? Making her barren, unstable, unmaptable? That is a slow political execution. It removes you as a threat, as a rival, without any of the mess." "A rival?" Anna laughed, a bitter, dry sound. "A rival to Lyra. I was never a rival." "You were," Kaelin said, his golden eyes fixed on her. "You just didn't know it." The purging began an hour before sunrise. It was not a gentle process. It felt as if her entire body was on fire, a feverish, agonizing burn that started in her stomach and spread to her fingertips. She writhed on the furs, a scream locked in her throat. "Hold her," Morwen commanded. Kaelin was there instantly. He didn't just hold her, he anchored her, pulling her against his chest, his own powerful aura a cooling balm on her burning skin. "Breathe, Anna," he ordered, his voice in her ear. "Breathe through it. Your wolf is fighting. Let her win." And then she felt it. The whimpering, tiny thing she'd called her wolf the one that lived in a dark corner of her mind, suddenly roared to life. It was not small. It was not weak. It was a silver-furred, white-hot, furious thing. It uncoiled in her soul, energized by the mate bond, and attacked the poison. Anna screamed, a raw, animalistic sound that was half human, half wolf, her fingernails elongated into claws, ripping the fine silk of the chaise. Her vision sharpened, the colours in the room becoming painfully vibrant. She could smell the fear on the guards outside the door, the stone of the castle, the old wood and ember scent of Caelan. She shoved away from him, landing on her feet in a crouch, her body thrumming with a power she had never known. Her silver-grey hair, which had always been lank and dull, seemed to crackle with energy. She looked at Caelan, not as a servant, but as an equal. Her own eyes, she knew, were no longer a watery grey. They were glowing with the bright silver light of her awakened wolf. Caelan stood slowly, his face a mask of awe. "Goddess," he breathed. "She's a silver heart," Morwen whispered, her eyes wide with reverence. "My king. The prophecy." "I see it," Caelan said. "What?" Anna panted, the power still surging through her. "What prophecy?" "An old text," Caelan said, his eyes not leaving hers. "It speaks of the schism that divided the Pax centuries ago. It says that the Pax will only be united again under a king and queen of heart's blood." "A king of gold," he said, tapping his own chest. "And a queen of silver." He looked at her, his expression raw. "They didn't just poison you, Anna. They tried to poison the future of our entire race." Before Anna could process this, the heavy doors to the chamber burst open. It wasn't Caelan's guards. It was Alpha Alistair, his face purple with rage, flanked by two of his own Blood Moon warriors. "King or not," Alistair bellowed, "you will not steal my daughter and slander my family. I demand she be returned." Behind him, Lyra and Seraphina stood, their faces pale but defiant, and with them, the old healer, Myra. "You demand?" Caelan repeated, his voice dangerously soft. "She is my property. She is barren," Alistair roared, pointing a finger at Anna. "You are being bewitched by this nothing." "Barren, am I?" Anna said. It was the first time she had ever spoken to her father with anything but fear. Her voice was different. It was clear, strong, and layered with the low growl of her wolf. Alistair faltered, his eyes widening as he saw her. The servant girl was gone. In her place stood a woman crackling with power, draped in the king's cloak, her eyes shining with silver light. What is this?" he stammered. "This," Caelan said, moving to stand beside Anna, their shoulders brushing, "is your judgment." "My king!" Marcus, the king's beta, rushed in, his face grim. Alistair's guards forced their way past. "My apologies." "It's fine, Marcus," Caelan said. It seems the Blood Moon delegation was eager for their trial. "Trial?" Seraphina scoffed, finding her voice. "For what? For the ramblings of a pathetic, barren girl." "No, Luna," Morwen said, stepping out of the shadows. "For the attempted murder of a queen, a crime I have all the proof I need to confirm." Morwen held up the crystal, still swirling with the black, oily residue of the poison. "This is the signature of the grey lily toxin, a poison so rare only a master healer would know how to brew it." The old healer, Myra, visibly flinched. Her eyes darted to Seraphina. That was all Caelan needed. "Myra of the Blood Moon," Caelan's voice boomed. "Step forward." The old woman trembled. I only did what my Luna commanded." Betrayal. Seraphina's mask of ice cracked. "You senile old fool," she shrieked. "So it was you," Anna whispered, her heart, despite everything, breaking. "Mother." "Why?" Seraphina's composure shattered, replaced by a venomous, jealous rage. Why? Why? Because you were a threat. A threat? Anna was bewildered. You, Seraphina hissed, her finger pointing at Anna, were born with her blood. She gestured to the sky. Your grandmother's blood, the cursed silver heart line. I saw it the day you were born. That pale, cursed hair. Those grey eyes. The line wasn't cursed, Morwen interrupted. It was powerful, more powerful than any in generations. It was a stain, Seraphina screamed. It was supposed to be Lyra's time. She was my perfect child. Strong, beautiful, a perfect alpha's mate. But you had that taint. It threatened to overshadow her. I would not let you ruin her future. So I had Myra dampen it. We suppressed your wolf, cooled your womb. We made you what you should have been. Nothing. The confession hung in the air, ugly and raw. Alistair looked at his wife, his face a canvas of dawning horror. Seraphina, what did you do? I did what I had to, she shrieked. And it worked. It worked until he came. Lyra, who had been silent, suddenly lunged, not at Anna, but at her mother. You did this for me. You ruined me. Don't you see? They're calling her a queen. You made me the sister of a barren outcast. Now I'm the sister of a queen who... She devolved into mad sobs. You've ruined everything. It was a symphony of dysfunction, a pathetic, greedy, jealous family imploding on itself. Anna watched them, not with fear, but with a cold, clear pity. They were small. They were insects. Kaelin looked at Alistair. You were blind, Alpha. Blinded by ambition and a weak will. You let this viper's nest fester under your own roof. You let them poison a prophesied wolf, your own blood, and you sold her for a treaty. He turned to his beta. Marcus, seize them. No! Alistair roared, drawing a dagger. He lunged, not at Kaelin, but at Anna. If I can't have my pack, this bitch won't have a future. It was a fatal miscalculation. He never saw Anna move. Her wolf, awakened and furious, took over. She sidestepped his clumsy attack, her hand shooting out to grip his wrist. Her claws, now fully extended, pierced his skin. She twisted. Alistair screamed as the sound of bone cracking echoed in the room. The dagger fell. Anna didn't stop. She slammed her palm into his chest, the pure, raw power of her silver heart aura hitting him like a physical blow. He flew backward, crashing into the stone wall and sliding to the floor, unconscious. Silence. Anna stood, panting, her hand dripping with her father's blood. She looked at her hand, then at her mother and sister, who were cowering in the corner. Then she looked at Kaelin. He wasn't angry. He wasn't horrified. He was smiling, a fierce, proud, possessive smile. Marcus, Kaelin said, his voice brimming with satisfaction. Take this trash to the dungeons, all of them. The conclave of alphas will meet tomorrow, and they will witness the king's justice. He walked to Anna, gently taking her bloodied hand. He looked at the cowering Seraphina. You wanted her to be nothing, he said, his voice a lethal purr. Instead, you have created a queen, and you have just handed her your pack. While Anna's family rotted in the dungeons, she faced a new enemy. Kaelin's own beta, Marcus, a stark traditionalist, confronted her. You are a vulnerability, he snarled, his loyalty to the king overshadowed by his political fears. You bring him no allies, no dowry, only instability. The Stone Fist and Silver Crescent Alphas see his bond as a weakness. They will challenge him, and you will be the cause of his ruin. Anna saw his ambition for what it was, not just political concern, but jealousy. She reported the conversation to Kaelin. "He is right about one thing," she said, her voice hard. "They see me as a weakness. Let me prove I am a weapon." The next day, at the conclave of alphas, her family was paraded in chains. Morwen presented the evidence of the poison, and Seraphina, in a fit of rage, confessed everything, screaming that she had to suppress Anna's cursed Silverheart bloodline to ensure Lyra's success. This confession of internal rot only deepened the Alpha's concerns. Alpha Gideon sneered, "This is a family circus. The Blood Moon pack is leaderless." Seizing the tense moment, Marcus stepped forward, his face a mask of false loyalty. "My king, the Alphas are right to worry. Perhaps the Luna," he said, turning to Anna with a dismissive look, "is still unwell. Perhaps, for the good of the Dominion, she would be willing to renounce this claim, allowing you to make a stronger alliance." It was a brilliant political trap, designed to paint her as selfish if she refused. The hall fell silent. Kaelin sat like stone, his hand on his sword, leaving the choice to her. Anna stood, her silver eyes blazing. She would not be renewed. 6 months later, the true test arrived. The Stonefist pack, led by the brutal Alpha Gorath, refused to honor the new queen. He raided allied lands, openly mocking Kaelin for mating a barren kitchen rat. When Gorath dammed a vital river, threatening famine, Kaelin called his banners for war. "You will not go," Kaelin commanded in their private chambers, his face a mask of worry. "You are wrong," Anna said, not looking up as she strapped a silver steel vambrace to her arm. "Gorath, and every other Alpha, believes I am your weakness. If I do not ride with you, if I do not face him myself, they will always believe it. I am not a treasure to be hidden in a tower. I am your queen." Kaelin's grim face broke into a smile of pure, wolfish pride. "So be it, my queen. Let us hunt." They rode as one, gold and silver, at the head of the Ashenclaw army. The battle was a muddy, brutal affair at the river. While Kaelin met the Stonefist warriors head-on in a furious clash of steel, Anna enacted her own plan. Using the intelligence network she'd quietly built from invisible servants and merchants, she led a small elite force on a hidden goat path. She didn't just flank Gorath, she gutted his operation from behind. She seized his camp, burned his supplies, and took his son as a hostage. When Gorath saw the Silver Wolf banner flying over his own tents, he howled in rage and shifted, charging for Kaelin. But it was Anna who met him. Her Silverheart wolf wasn't as large, but it was blindingly fast and lethally smart. She didn't meet his brute force. She used it, dodging and tearing until the massive Alpha was bleeding on the ground, her jaws at his throat. She had won, not just with power, but with tactical genius. The legend of the Silverheart Queen was born in blood, steel, and strategy. 1 year later, the Grand Hall of the Ashenclaw Dominion, Kaelin's own stronghold, was lit for the winter solstice. It was not a tense political gathering, but a true celebration. Alpha Silas of the Shadowfang was there, raising a toast. Alpha Gideon, his face humbled, was there with his son. And Lyra. Lyra was quiet now, her golden beauty faded, but she was no longer cruel. She was just empty. She gave Anna a wide, respectful berth. At the head of a new table, designated for the king's reformed, sat Marcus. He was no longer a beta, but he was Kaelin's new warlord, his loyalty as hard as the steel he wore. He had earned his place back, and he watched Anna not with jealousy, but with a fierce, unwavering devotion. Kaelin stood, raising his goblet. "To the Dominion," he said, his voice warm. "To the Dominion," the hall cheered. "And," he added, his golden eyes finding Anna, To the Queen." Anna smiled, rising. She was radiant, her silver-grey hair braided with winter roses. She was also, very clearly, pregnant. Her hand rested on the swell of her stomach, a silent, final testament to the lie that had defined her life. The barren Queen was carrying the heir to the entire dominion. Later that night, they stood on the balcony, watching the snow fall on their peaceful kingdom. "They finally fear you more than they fear me," Kaelin murmured, wrapping his arms around her from behind, resting his hands on hers over their unborn child. "Good," Anna said. "They should. You are just a king." "I," she said, leaning back against his chest, "am the woman who knows how to listen to servants." He laughed, a deep, rich sound that rumbled through her. He turned her in his arms, his gaze impossibly soft, the golden-eyed warrior gone, replaced by the man from the woods. "They sold you," he whispered, his voice filled with the last vestiges of his old anger. "They sold you for nothing." "No, Kaelin," Anna said, rising on her toes to kiss him, the mate bond thrumming between them, a warm, golden, silver light. "They didn't sell me for nothing. They sold me for everything." And that's the story of Anna, the barren servant who became the Silver-Heart Queen. What a journey. It just goes to show, the people who underestimate you are often the ones who are the most afraid of your true power. The karma delivered to Seraphina and Lyra. Absolutely chef's kiss. What was your favorite part of Anna's revenge? Was it the moment Kaelin chose her in the hall, the incredible poison twist, or that epic takedown of Marcus and her family at the conclave? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I read every single one. If you loved this story, and you want more tales of karmic justice, epic romance, and twists you never see coming, then you know what to do. Make sure you hit that like button, share this video with a friend who loves a good story, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. Click that bell so you never miss an update. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next story.